This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm Steve Gould. Thank you for joining us. This was a really fun episode. It's a little bit different than the other interviews. I got the opportunity to interview retired FBI agent Joe Pistone, who is, of course, the real Donnie Brasco. The movie Donnie Brasco is based on his 6-year undercover stint with the New York Mafia. He was played by Johnny Depp in that movie. It's a fantastic movie, and the story is totally insane, just as insane as as it's portrayed in the movie. So when I got the opportunity to interview Joe, I was, of course, super excited about it. Couldn't wait to get to it. And also on the interview is his friend and co-host of their podcast, Leo Rossi. Leo's been a Hollywood actor for many, many years, been in hundreds of movies, and he's just a great guy. They have a podcast together where Leo kind of interviews Joe and just kind of extrapolates out all the craziness that happened in those 6 years that you just couldn't fit into a 2-hour movie. I've been listening to their podcast, and it's really fun. You should check it out. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. So this interview is me chatting with them and going back and forth. I have my own questions for him about how accurate the movie was, and just some things that popped up in the movie that were it just seems unreal. But they always say that reality is, reality stranger than fiction. That's what it is. All right, let me get this. I've tried to do this intro like 17 times, so this is it. I don't care how much I screw it up. So that's the interview. It was really fun, and I hope you enjoy it. And just so you know, I myself, on a personal note, and my family, we are moving back to Massachusetts. So there might be a little bit of gap in the podcast coming up. I might take a little break around the holidays because listenership is down then anyways. People are with their families. So might be a little break, but I'll be back. Ken and I will be back with the news. We might try to do the news while I'm on the road. I don't know if it'll work out. You have to understand, I'm going cross country with my wife, 3 kids, dog, and 4 goats. So I'm towing an 18-foot stock trailer, half filled with our stuff, half filled with goats, and a child under 1. So it's going to be interesting to say the least. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I think it will be okay. And what I'm doing back in Massachusetts is I'm becoming a police officer again. So I'm going back on the job. I'm going to finish up my career, put in, so I'll put in at least 20, a total of 20 with going back there. And yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to do it, listening to all these interviews and just doing the podcast with Ken weekly for the news. Just really kind of got me interested in police work again. I think it was always there. Like Ken always says, it's kind of you kind of have to really want to do that job. It's kind of a calling being a police officer, and it has always been kind of in the back of my head. It never went away. I did 14 years total law enforcement, 10 years as a police officer, and I'm going to go back and finish it out in Massachusetts. We're going to be closer to family, so we're kind of checking a lot of boxes by moving back there. Is it the ideal state that I wanted to move to? No, but it's where all of our family is. All of our family is in New England, so it's kind of where we want to be. So I wish it was more like Tennessee with my whole family there, but it's not. It's like California Junior, but we'll make do with Massachusetts. So without further ado, here's the interview with Joe Pistone and Leo Rossi. Joe Pistone and Leo Rossi, welcome to the podcast, gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Steve, my man, it's nice to be talking to you. And you are in the state of?
California. I'm just down the road from you, probably.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, not far.
Oh, okay, because I'm a Temecula. I just moved to Temecula, it's the wine country, and Joe didn't think that was a good place for me to move near wine. But
I love Temecula. It's beautiful.
it's pretty cool. He threatens to come out here when all this COVID stuff. It's very, very nice. It's an hour and a half outside of LA, and it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it out there. It's God's country. It's still have some open spaces, unbelievably. Joe, you're not in SoCal. Are you on the East Coast?
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. All right,
if
guys.
he tells you exactly where, Steve, then I'll have to kill you. So
I will not pry. I do not want to be killed because of this interview. So guys, I'm so excited to have you on. Usually with this podcast, it's got a good following going because we usually have law enforcement officers on, and I kind of ask them boilerplate questions about their careers, and they're no holds barred. They don't hold back. They let people know what it's really like. So when I got the opportunity to have you guys on, I was really excited. I mean, this is a different kind of episode for the show, but Joe, your career in the FBI is obviously the movie Donnie Brasco with Johnny Depp starring was a huge hit. I think one of his best movies he's ever had with Al Pacino and all that. And Leo Rossi, Hollywood actor, successful for 30 plus years. You've been in like 1,000 movies. I'm just super excited to have you guys here. And so it's going to be a different kind of episode where I want to hear I've actually been listening to your podcast. You guys have a new podcast called Deep Cover, The Real Donnie Brasco. And it's just, I like this kind of podcast because it's like a serialized podcast. You guys go chronologically, and it's basically Leo and Joe sitting across from each other at a table, and Leo's kind of pulling out of Joe all the nuanced details that you don't get to see in the movie Donnie Brasco, all the stuff that's left out. And, 2-hour movie could never do it justice.
Well, that's a good description, just what you said. And, I think the one thing that people who listen have reacted so positively about is, and I take it as a great compliment, it's like they're sitting with Joe and I having a beer or a cup of coffee or something like that. And that's because Joe and I know each other for over 20 years, and we really, we like each other, we trust each other, and, that helps a great deal.
So how does Leo Rossi get teamed up with Joe Pistone?
Joe, do you want to say where we met?
Yeah, actually, Steve, a good friend of mine, writer, director, and also a very dear friend of Leo's, by the name of Bobby Moresco, who's from the west side of New York, went out to L.A., became a writer, and tried to become an actor, but he wasn't too good of an actor. But
you're right there. You are right there.
He turned out to be a pretty good writer because he won the Academy Award for the movie Crash, and it's turned out a lot of scripts. So after my movie came out, Donnie Brasco, CBS thought about doing a TV series, and they picked Moresco to be one of the writers, along with a fellow by the name of Kenny Solars, another writer. And I had known Bobby not really well, but I knew him since he was a New Yorker, and I knew him through other friends. So as we got together and went over the Bible, the script for the pilot, we needed a lawyer, and not many people know this, but Leo had a couple years of law school at Villanova, but he still doesn't even know what an easement is.
I'm guilty as charged.
Hey, he got into Villanova. That says something.
Yeah. At any rate, one day we're talking, and we're going through actors, and the lead actor that played me was Jason Gedrick, and we had some other actors, and we needed an attorney. So Leo says, "Hey, I want you to meet a guy, a good friend of mine." And I said, "Well, what's his name?" He said, "Leo Rossi." Well, of course, I know the name. I mean, who doesn't know Leo Rossi from TV and movies? So he came over to Moresco's house, and we're sitting around having lunch. And, after a while, I said, well, Bobby, who's going to play, who you thinking about for the lawyer? So Leo gets this shit-eating grin, and he says, it's me. So I said, well, that was all right with me, So Bobby says, well, how do you like him? I said, well, after a few hours here, I really like Leo, but he effing talks too much.
Yes.
We became friends, and after the TV series, we went on to produce a couple of movies and some other TV stuff, and we've just stayed friends. And then one day we're sitting around, and Brasco and Leo, and they said, "Hey, what do you think about doing a one-man play?" I said, "I think it's a great idea." So we start writing this one-man play, Donnie Brasco, The Way the Wise Guy. It was on one of my books, The Way the Wise Guy. And again, me not being a Phi Beta Kappa. I mean, I did all right in 7 years of college, and I had like a B plus average. And I said, "Well, who's going to play me?" And I guess Leo says, "Me."
He's in the right place at the right time.
It worked the first time, so I guess I was trying it again.
That's awesome.
So, but we I could say in the 21 years or such that we've known each other, we've never had an argument, and we've worked on projects together, and the podcast was a good fit. I was thinking about why not have a podcast, and I brought it up to Leo, and we brought it to a good friend of ours, John Mosier, out of Philadelphia, who's a businessman and has a big company. What's the name of his company, Leo?
MBB Productions. Yeah.
And and John's been a good friend of Leo's and mine, and there's where it started.
See, now everything that Joe said there is gospel except one thing. He said, everybody knows me in town. I don't think my agent knows me. He doesn't return my calls. I said,
I don't know, Leo. I when you Google you come up and you go, I know this guy. You've been in so many parts. That's funny because when we were kind of organizing having you guys on, I was talking to an assistant or an agent or somebody, and I said, I interview law enforcement officers about their careers. So do you think Leo would fit in okay? And she says, don't worry about Leo. He'll be talking plenty.
Well, that's good. I hope it's really interesting that Joe and I, I've played good guys, bad guys, whatever, but Joe, and talking to not only his wife, who's become dear friends of my wife, and me, but Joe has not changed, since he was growing up in Paterson, New Jersey. And when we started the show, I said, all right, well, what kind of a persona did you want to create? We know he was a jewel thief. That was his legend. But how about your background? And, he said, I just didn't want to put any layers. It was me, different name, but all of what I'm about, his code of how he lives his life and everything like that, he didn't put any layers on. And I'm sure that was a big reason that he could actually, for 6 years, sometimes only see his family 3 times in a year. I mean, he had the trust of these mafiosi, and how many convictions, Joe? Over 200. And the Italian organized crime, the mafia, has never been the same since Joe had a hand in putting all those people away.
It's truly insane. Like the story is crazy, and it's, you try to put yourself in Joe's shoes. I do anyways when you watch the movie or when you listen to your podcast, and you try to think what you would do, and you want to think you would do the brave thing, or you would do the tough thing, but I don't know. Being locked in rooms with mafiosos, calling gems fagazzos or whatever they call them.
Fugazi.
Fugazi. Yeah, these guys. And like you guys touch on in your podcast, it's the culture of the whole thing is you can't insult them or step on their shoes or offend, because that's a big no-no. But also you can't be a wuss. They want you to stand up for yourself, even if they have to smack you about it. If they see that you're a jellyfish, that also could get you killed. So
yeah, well, you did time on the street, so on the street, what is it? It's maintaining your respect and credibility, right?
Yeah,
and it's the same thing, if you're a uniform copper on the street, you got to maintain your respect from the bad guys and your credibility that you'll do what's right when in the time. So
yeah, especially when you're new you'll get tested right away. They want to see who this new guy in the neighborhood is.
Exactly.
So, like, Joe, why FBI? Why not state police or local police or sheriffs or, if you want to be a cop?
Well, actually, when I was in my senior year of college, I did take the police exam. I passed it. In fact, I think I came out number 2. And before I took it, I didn't have a deal, but I had the understanding that I could finish college and go through the academy. Well, that didn't, that wasn't going to happen. So I would have had to quit college. And like I said, I was in my last year, and I wasn't about to quit in my last year. So that I didn't go on to PD. So what I went into naval intelligence and spent a couple of years in naval intelligence. And while in naval intelligence, I worked closely with the local FBI office, and I had applied. I actually had applied to DEA, but at the time it was the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and I applied to them and the FBI, and the FBI came through first. I always knew I was going to get into law enforcement, at some level, and the FBI came through first, and I was lucky enough that it did, and so I went with the FBI.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the FBI is initially, from their inception, they're pretty against any kind of long-term deep cover role. I think J. Edgar Hoover himself was against it because of the possibility that the law enforcement officer starts to assimilate to the criminal. So was this kind of the first deep cover scenario this long?
Yeah, actually it was. We had been doing undercover even under Mr. Hoover. But it was all, buy bust. An informant has a guy that has stocks, bonds, whatever, those types of cases. And you get introduced, and you do the dance for a day, 2 days, and then once the exchange comes up, you bust them. So we had probably throughout the country. In fact, I still got the first class picture. We had about 25 guys throughout the country that were doing undercover. But like I say, no real long-term, it was 2 days, 3 days dealing with the bad guy, and then you bust them. The first, if you want to call it long-term, was the storefront operations. You guys must have had those. We partnered up with, when I say we, I'm talking about the FBI. We partnered up with Washington, D.C. Metro PD. And it was a fella, an FBI agent out of Washington Field by the name of Robert Lill, Bob Lill. And they opened up a storefront. And, they were buying all swag from the local thieves. but the guys that were working it, they went home at night. They just reported into the storefront every day, and I think that ran for about a year. But that was a form of long-term undercover. But these guys went home every night.
Yeah. Your situation,
right,
sends shivers up my spine when you watch that movie and the disconnection you must have felt from your family. The fact that probably when you're visiting your family, how can you even be there mentally because you're just thinking about these brutal killers that you've now befriended, and if they were to ever see this situation, you with your family in the burbs, they would kill you. It must have been.
Yeah, but that's the difference when you do. You can have a long-term operation, but that long-term operation, the undercover, like I say, usually has close contact with the office, or we may have a business, but the undercover generally goes home.
Right.
Deep cover is what separates who wants to do it and who doesn't want to do it. Because in deep cover, that's when once you walk out of that office, you never go back to that office. Your only papers that you have are your, in your fake identification, your legend. You move out of your residence and you have your own apartment. And normally, not normally, but it's not in the same city that you're where you live at. So,
I wanted to ask you that, Joe, because I when you and Leo during one of your episodes, you talk about growing up kind of around seeing mafiosos. Your father owned a couple restaurants or taverns or whatever, and in the New Jersey area. Did that? I mean, typically someone's son becomes an FBI agent. They'd be super proud, tell everybody, tell the family. The whole neighborhood would know, Did that have to be kept under wraps at all? Or did you ever think about that when you were going deep in the New York City mob, if the Pistone name would ever pop up and someone would know you?
I wasn't living in Patterson when I went into the FBI. I was living out of state. And then my first office was Jacksonville, Florida. And it wasn't, Italians aren't, they're pretty closed-mouthed about everything, even if your kid goes into the FBI, it's
gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's enough distance there initially.
My friends that I grew up with, but being from Jersey, it was a strange thing with these guys. They're very parochial, I mean, the New York guys don't go into Jersey. The Jersey guys don't go into New York. You know what I'm saying? They got their territory, and that's where they stay and where they hang out.
That makes sense. Why would you want to if you got all this juice in one area? Why would you leave?
Yeah, exactly. So my infiltration was in New York, but it also, I also infiltrated the family in Milwaukee. I infiltrated the family in Florida. I infiltrated the Colombos in New York City. So even though the Jersey mob guys were part of those families, they didn't have any real reason to go into Brooklyn, to go into Little Italy. You know what I'm saying? Mm. Even though they were, say, Bonannos or Gambinos, they stayed in Jersey. So that's how,
Well, the one thing that always fascinated me that Joe and I have talked about, it's Chaz Palminteri is a friend of both of ours, and he wrote and starred in, what was the movie? Bronx Tale. And, the glamour in the neighborhood, like Patterson or Trenton, New Jersey, where I was born, South Philly, the glamour guys were the mob guys. They double parked. They had all the brand new cars and rings and everything. And I asked Joe, I said, wasn't that a lure for you? And no, right from the get-go, it was the other side of the fence.
Well, I think when you grow up seeing, I mean, look, you can go either way. It all starts on, to me, it starts in your home. I mean, even though my father was, had the bars and everything, he was a pretty straight guy. I mean, he liked to play cards and everything, but and bet the horses, but he was a pretty straight guy. And one thing he would always tell me when I would be bartending, he said, "That's not your money. Remember that. That's the owner's money." And so it's instilled in you from your upbringing. But no, I never, and plus the fact, I don't know, I think with that upbringing, it was like I never wanted to do anything to embarrass my parents, and that
absolutely. The fact that you had that thought means they did a good job,
Yep. Yeah. Because there is that temptation, this, and in the end, they're vipers. We had a section, and it's called, mob guys are barbaric. And if you in any way shortchange yourself of thinking that life to them, it don't mean much, man.
Yeah.
If you get the contract to pop your cousin goes bye-bye or you go bye-bye.
Yeah, I'll never forget that in the movie when Pacino's in the car. Remember at one point in the movie, he's paranoid he's going to get shot. And he says, "Hey," he goes, it's can't live forever. And, usually it's your best friend who puts a gun in your face. And I was like, how could you live like that?
Yeah, well, these guys, I mean, it's crazy because, these guys, like Leo said, if you get the contract to pop your brother, I mean, you're either going to pop your brother or you're going to get popped. In the mob, you don't refuse a contract. If your boss gives you one, your capo gives you the contract, and there's no negotiating anything. There's no negotiating like, well, Steve's worth $50,000. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Your capo gives you the contract. You accept it. It's your responsibility that guy gets whacked. That's just the way it is.
Wow. Joe, can you tell the listeners about your first, when you went deep cover, your first like truly intense moment, trying to infiltrate the mob?
Trying to infiltrate.
Yeah. Like when you first, what was your first, like a moment when you were, getting in with the families and your heart was racing and you were thinking, I might not get out of this?
Well, there were a couple. I had infiltrated in the beginning, the Colombos, and it was early on, and I had been with them a couple months, and one day a couple guys show up at the social club, and I didn't know them, but I'm introduced to them. And one guy was a made guy and one guy wasn't a made guy. One guy was an associate, which at that time, that's what I would have been. That's what I was. And, the mafia has certain rules. I'm sure just like other organized crime groups. And some of the rules will get you killed if you break them. And some will just get you a penalty,
Right.
So one of the rules that'll get you killed is and it's like crazy, but if I get into a beef with a made guy, now a made guy is somebody that's been officially inducted into a mafia family. I can't embarrass him in front of anybody that's there. I mean, just embarrass him. Take it a step further. You get into a beef with a guy. He gives you a slap. You can't hit him back. Mm. That'll get you killed on the spot. You can't lay your hands on a made guy. So, very good thing for an undercover agent to know.
Yeah.
I would think so. Because you are not going to infiltrate any group and not have everybody like you. Everybody doesn't like everybody. I mean, in real life, everybody doesn't like everybody.
Sure.
People are jealous. You might be making more money than them. They think you're closer to the capo than they are. I mean, it's just human nature. So I'm introduced to these guys, and being that they just got out of the can, they're looking to make a score. And, my profession was a jewel thief. So, jewel thieves, you got to know alarms, you got to know locks, you got to know how to get in things. And before I went undercover, I became pretty proficient in the area of being a jewel thief.
So the FBI gave you some training in that.
Yeah. I went to school.
Wow.
The FBI guys, the tech guys. I spent time with the tech guys because that's a big mistake that a lot of young undercovers do. They go out and they say they're XYZ, but they don't know squat about whatever their profession is.
Yeah. Now show me, then they can't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oof.
So these guys, they to make a long story short, they had some scores lined up. We go out, they case them, and I tell them I can't, I can't beat that alarm system. That's an alarm system I can't defeat because, again, you can't be everything. Even though you're an expert in certain things, you got to be. It's real life, and in real life, everybody can't do everything. So this happened a couple times. One day I get to the club and the head guy there was a guy by the name of Jilly, and he said, Donnie, let's take a walk and talk. So we walk and talk, and he says, Patsy wants to have a sit down. Oh, for what? Well, I told him what a good thief you are, and blah blah blah. And these two jobs, you say you couldn't defeat the alarm system. Et cetera.
Holy! At this point, I'd be like, I forgot something in my car. You'd never see me again.
So we go into the club. We go in the back, and go in the back room. You close the door, lock the door, and there's in the back. The windows had bars on them, so you're not going out any windows either.
Oh yeah.
So he takes out his pistola and he lays it on the desk, and he said, Donnie. He said, if you don't convince me you're good as thief as Jilly says you are, the only way you're going out of here is rolled up in that rug.
Oh, man.
So, well, for about, 4.5 hours, he's laying, where you're from, give me names of guys, that you thieved with down in California, in Florida. And, one thing you don't do is you never give up anybody. You don't give up, So I just keep throwing it back. And I say, hey, look, I'm not giving you the name of anybody that, that I did scores with in California, in Florida, anywhere. If Jilly vouches for me, that should be enough for me. And plus the fact, you just got out of the can. How do I know you didn't become an informant? And that's why they let you out of the can.
Oh, man. That must have pissed him off.
So after like 4.5 hours, finally, Jilly said, that's it. This is over. We know that Donnie's all right, blah, 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 But I got a problem now because this guy called me out. And I can't, if I go up and shake hands with him and say, hey, Patsy, I realize your concerns and everything, but, then it's like, hey, wait a minute. We just grilled him for 4.5 hours. He should be pissed off, not right. Trying to, So the only thing they understand now is a confrontation. Now I can't hit Patsy because he's a made guy, but I can sure as hell whack Frankie. So as we get up and go to walk out, I clock Frankie, and he goes down, and I just start beating on him, and Patsy starts beating on me, but I can't touch him because I can't, because he's a made guy. So after a couple of minutes, they break it up. But I know that I can't come back here. I can't hang with these guys anymore. So I go to Jilly and I say, Jilly, let's take a walk. So I say, Jilly, you and I are friends, but I can't come back here because it's never going to be right with those two guys. So let you and I part friends. And that's then after that is when I hooked up with the Bonannos. But that was kind of, that was kind of on edge there because, hey, you're in a room there. If you give the wrong answer, the guy, who knows what he's going to do?
He said to me when we were talking about this situation with Patsy and Frankie, I said, well, when they told you, what'd you think when they said you ain't walking out of that room if you don't convince us? Joe said he looks around and he sees the rug. It's what kind of rug? It was.
Well, I said, I hope it was Persian.
Yeah.
Go out in style, at least.
Yeah, he goes out and it's. But the fascinating thing for me with Joe is, and you see the movie and you read the books and everything, but in real life, first time we met, but we go into a restaurant. And this was actually the second time, and I got to the guy. I'm with an American hero here. This is great. And we go to an Italian restaurant because Joe loves Italian food, and I do too. I wear it a little more than he does. He's the same size he was in high school, son of a gun. Anyway, but we go and I sit down, and Joe says, "Get up, get up." I go, "Get up? Why?" He says, "Sit over here." All right, so I sit over there. He sits where I sat because his back was to the wall.
Mm.
He clocked everybody else coming in, and, people say to me, you and Joe, you hang out together. You were in Chicago doing the play. Aren't you scared? And I said, because Joe did have a $500,000 contract, open contract to take him out by the Mafia. The 5 families in New York. And they say, aren't you scared? And I always say, I'm too dumb to be scared. And we were just,
I'm an actor.
So it's been, and he is so direct. He does not suffer fools at all. We were in a production meeting. This is one of the great stories. We're in a production meeting for a reality show. They were interested in us to do it and everything. And we're taking a lunch break. And they ordered out for lunch, and we're all sitting around, these producers. And one of the producers says, "Hey, Joe, did you ever kill anybody?" And it's dead silence. I mean,
what a thing to ask.
What a jerk off, right? Yeah. To ask. And it's like dead silence. Joe puts down his sandwich and he laser stares him and said, "What do you think?" Ba-ba-ba-bo! Dun, 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 dun. Oh, man.
Joe, when you, like you were just saying, Leo, there's so many things you wouldn't think about because most of us have never been in this situation. But you get done, job well done, pat on the back. Finally, I get to go into my family and have a somewhat normal life. But then it's the contract on your head. Then it's like everywhere you go, looking over your shoulder, everywhere you eat, you want to put your back to the wall. I mean, I know a lot of police officers that do that anyhow, but you had good reason. The hitman could walk over right behind you, put a gun to the back of your head. Did the FBI have some kind of transitional program for that for like 6 months, a year, anything to keep you? I mean, it must have been when the court cases were going on, they must have had you somewhere. Or obviously, don't say where it was and don't tell me where you are now because I don't want to die. But did they have some kind of program for that?
Yeah. When I came out, I hooked up with a couple guys. When I say couple guys, FBI agents, because the thing was, soon as the operation was over, I didn't have any downtime because I had grand juries and meetings with U.S. attorneys in New York, Southern District, Eastern District, Tampa, Miami.
You're just all over the place for years, probably.
Yeah. So, I was just traveling all over, and plus FBI headquarters. So I didn't go right home. I was on the road doing grand jury and getting all the indictments squared away with the U.S. attorneys. But yeah, I traveled with a team. I had a team of FBI agents that traveled with me. Yeah.
And you're still with the same woman to this day, correct?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Wow, what a champ, man. That is. I was on overnights for 5 years. My wife was ready to leave me.
Yes, it's well, when you meet his wife,
I just think it might have been sometimes when she didn't want to leave me. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think his wife Maggie, I think she's just as tough, probably tougher than most of the guys he dealt with. she is beautiful, man, and he's got 3 daughters that that I'm very familiar with, and they said. They saw the movie, obviously. And then when we did the one-man show, which tried to show other facets than outside of what the movie was. And they came to me after opening night, and it was at Chicago Center for the Performing Arts. And they said, we didn't know how lonely it was for our dad. And because the movie, depicted one thing, but we really showed the loneliness. I mean, he was way out there without a paddle to row back to shore.
Yeah, it's a very special kind of person that can do that. That's really incredible.
Yeah, he's my hero. Yes, Joe.
Wow. So, Joe, can you share with us another intense moment from being undercover with the families there? Maybe something that wasn't so clear or wasn't shared in the movie, anything like that?
Well, I think the one thing, and there was another incident, and I think that was in the movie with the Abscam boat, the Left Hand. The FBI had a boat, and it was used in a big undercover operation. And I took some wise guys out fishing on it because I was assured that that operation wasn't going to end anytime soon. Well, what happened was that the press got wind of it, and they wouldn't hold the story that the FBI had this big political undercover operation going against politicians. So they had to end that operation, and the boat played a big part because they took these politicians out, for boat rides and fishing. So it turns out the boat is on the front page of I think it was Newsweek, Time or Newsweek, and Lefty Ruggiero, who was a wise guy in the Bonanno family and who was my criminal partner, sees it. And he says, Donnie, that's the boat we were on. I said, Left, how could that be the boat? And he said, what's my name? I said, Lefty. He said, what's the name of this boat? Left Hand. That was the name of the boat. And he said, you think I would forget that?
Ooh.
So I'd come up with a story about we had met. We had been out in San Diego, and I said, remember there were 2 ladies that you bought them dinner, and one of them, don't you remember? One of them told me, you guys ever get to Miami, my brother has a big fishing boat, blah 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 blah. Well, he said he didn't remember that story, but he never passed it on to anybody. So,
holy cow!
There were so many times. I mean, that you talk about actors. Okay, Olivier, Brando. No, we always have the magic word cut, and we do it again. Cut, and we do it
really.
again.
Yep.
No, he doesn't get to do again. And one of the great stories is when he was deep cover as Donnie Brasco. Your apartment was on the Upper West Side or East Side?
East Side.
East Side, Upper East Side, where they had a doorman and everything, and Joe was driving the caddy as Donnie, and all that, and so he goes in, and he's got just the way he carries himself, he's nobody you want to screw with. It turns out that the doorman, who was going to law school at the time, the doorman was Terrence Winters. Terrence Winters was the head writer under David Chase on The Sopranos. He also created Boardwalk Empire, but he's a struggling guy trying to support a family, going to night law school and everything. So we ran into him after Joe and I did in Studio City out in California there. Mm-hmm. And he said, I just got to tell you, he said, when I was a doorman, he said, this Donnie Brasco, I knew he was a stone killer. And I didn't want to look at him. I everywhere he was. And he said, at once, he came up, and I turned around quick, and I looked him right in the eyes, and I said, I just looked death in the eyes. Oh, my God. And he said, he told us that story,
Wow, no bigger compliment for the role he was playing.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Is it true that this might be the stupidest question of the podcast, but were you told you couldn't have a mustache? Is that one of the rules?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, once I got in with the Bonannos, yeah, I was told to shave my mustache.
Really? It's like paramilitary.
That's one of the because that's one of the, not a rule. Well, I guess it is a rule, is that they want you to be neat all the time. They didn't want any mustaches, no long hair. And at that time I had hair, so, and you had to dress neat. You didn't have to be in a suit and tie. I mean, nobody was in a suit and tie every day, but, they wanted you to look neat. And I did. I had to shave my mustache. Yeah.
Wow. I heard part of the podcast when you were describing these rules in length, and I suggest everybody go to Deep Cover, The Real Donnie Brasco, because there's just so much stuff in there. I'm on episode like 5 or so, and it's just so extrapolated out. It's so good. But the rules are they're fascinating, because as you listen, you remember the movie Donnie Brasco, and you remember Al Pacino telling him, hey, if I introduce you as this my guy, then you're this, but if you're our guy, then you're a made guy. And
friend of mine, or friend of mine, or a friend of ours.
Yes, and it's Lefty's teaching you, this stuff. And did that kind of go down like that? Did he kind of take you under his wing?
Oh yeah. Yep, he was a good instructor.
I thought it was so funny in the movie when you guys hand each other envelopes of money. You go, oh, thank you. You just exchange money.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that they do. At the Christmas time, your capo has a Christmas party, and you're expected to give him, give him some money, or exchange gifts with with your friends, and it's like nuts. So what am I going to do? Buy him a tie? So I give him $200, and he gives me $200, and then on the way out he says, "Hey Donnie, can I borrow that money?"
Oh,
so I ended up giving him $200, and I got squat. But that's why they're wise guys.
Well, yeah. Some of the episodes, and Joe is in possession of the tapes that he talked to Lefty, Sonny Black, who was the capo, and Joe, and we used them in a couple of episodes, and the ratings went through the roof. So Joe has another treasure chest of real tapes that he's talking to Lefty, and Lefty's voice alone. Yeah, Donnie,
Classic.
What are you thinking? Come on, what the fuck are you thinking, Donnie? I mean, right out of Central Casting, and Sonny Black, and we're going to, in our second season, use a lot of those tapes. They've been cleared to be used. When you hear the real conversation, and like Lefty in one says, he's a stool pigeon, Donnie. Stool pigeon. Back in the 80s, that's what they said, right? I mean, it's really pretty cool.
Like a caricature of a gangster almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think I know the answer to this, but did you ever get a chance to kind of debrief with Lefty, or did you just never see him again?
Good question. That's a good question, but it's a laugh.
My God. No. Well, number one, in any undercover operation I ever worked, I mean, I worked a lot of undercover operations. My thing was that I worked the undercover operation. You arrest them and you interview them. Now, if they want to talk to me, fine. I'll give you all the info on how to conduct your interview. Everything I know about them, but I never wanted to be there.
I don't blame you.
And and especially with Jerry, I can remember out in Milwaukee, the U.S. had left these in the cell out there, and the U.S. attorney says to me, I want you to go and talk. I said, are you crazy? I said, I'm not going to talk to him. I says, he won't. Number one, he won't talk to me. Number two, that's not my thing, right? So
talk about awkward.
Well, it's not. It's just that, hey, look, I did my job. Now, I'm going to give you all the information on the interrogation. Interrogate him. So, the U.S. attorney the assistant goes to him and says, "I'd like to, I'd like to bring Donnie Brasco down to talk to you," and he went crazy.
Oh, really?
They told me he went crazy. Don't you ever, and then even in a courtroom one day, he started hollering that I don't want to say the words, but he should be in jail. He's the gangster. And I mean, this is an open courtroom.
Yeah.
He had a great line. I wish I would have wrote that line. He said, "I'd like to stab him in the heart with a steak knife. One of them serrated things right in it."
Oh, man. That, I'm sure, did not quell any worries your wife might have had about.
And then he did, I think he did 15. And they let him out because he had terminal cancer. He had like 5 different types of cancer, and he beat them all. But he only had one lung left, and he was such a pain in the ass that you know what the diesel train is, right, Steve?
Is that a slang term, or are you just talking about a diesel train?
Well, the diesel run. They keep moving you from prison to prison.
Oh.
Because you're such a pain in the ass.
Gotcha.
He was on that diesel run for a while because he was a pain in the neck. And
I'm sure he was. Did Pacino listen to those tapes to kind of study them?
Yeah, I listened. Yeah, I listened to him with Al. So they let him out early because he had, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something to live, and they wanted to get rid of him. I mean, he gets out of prison, goes back to New York, and man, he goes. His son-in-law was a Gambino. One of his son-in-law was a Gambino, man, and he goes right to his son-in-law, and says, "We got to find that MFer and kill him." I mean, this is 15 years later. He's still, So,
wow. I wonder what his son-in-law was probably like, pump the brakes here and it's over.
Yeah, did I ever want to talk to him? No. And did he ever want to talk to me? No.
Oh man, this has been great, Joe. We have audience of, some of the audience is young, I should say. They're getting into law enforcement. On the show we've had federal agents before, we've had troopers and sheriffs and police. So they all listen. And to people starting law enforcement career, could you give any advice for people who want to be undercover? That's like, some people just want to do that. That's their thing. Is there any advice you could give them?
I gave them advice and they don't do it. Well, up until this pandemic, I was doing a lot of undercover schools. I do a lot of undercover schools overseas, and the main thing is that the young guys and gals, they're television. You know what I mean? They watch too much television. In undercover, you have to be yourself. The only thing you want to change about yourself is your name. You have to keep your personality. You have to keep your character. You have to keep your moral compass. Just change your name. And remember, it's another form of investigation. That's all it is. It's just another form of investigation. Other than that, and I think that might be the best, you be who you are. Don't change your moral compass. And, I'm not a drinker. I worked in bars. I grew up in bars, but I'm not a drinker. I didn't drink to enhance my credibility. Now, did I have a beer now and then? Yeah. Did I have a red wine now and then? Yeah. But I never drank to impress anybody. I have never taken a drug in my life. And I never took one to enhance my credibility in the undercover field. And what you have to remember is when these things come up, as far as drugs, taking money, drinking, sex, you can't be a politician. And what I mean by that is you can't straddle the fence. Soon as you're confronted with it, you have to make your decision. Donnie, why don't you drink? Because I don't drink. My limit is one beer and one wine. Do you think anybody cares?
Right.
Who cares? Donnie, you don't do it. I've never done a drug in my life. Why would I do a drug? I go to the gym every day. Why would I put that crap in my body? No. And don't ever offer it to me again.
Right. Just be affirmative in your.
That's exactly right. And you have to hit it head on. You can't, because if you say, well, not now, what does that mean?
Right.
That means at some point in time.
You got no conviction either. So
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And nobody, one of the meanest guys I've ever was around, he liked club soda.
Yeah.
And he was the meanest. When I tell you the meanest, he was the meanest guy I ever was around. And
that's a guy you wish would have drank.
Yeah, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
Never stand a chance with him. He's always sober.
And his drink of choice was club soda, and nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody cares that you don't. And plus the fact too, to the young undercovers, what's your ultimate goal? Your ultimate goal is to get to the courtroom.
Yeah.
To get to the courtroom, and when you're on that witness stand, they're going to know everything about you. That defense attorney is going to know how many times you were drunk, how many times you made lewd remarks about people, if you ever did a drug with whoever you infiltrated. Nothing is sacred anymore, and it's going to come out.
Yeah.
It's going to come out.
Talk about playing against a stacked hand when you're not an undercover guy like that. Like you
are.
Get in there, mix it up with them, but don't do anything very illegal. Don't take any drugs. It's like, holy cow.
Well, and I mean, even, even sometimes, some defense attorneys accuse me of being intimidating, intimidating. I'm 6 at the time I was, I'm 6'4", I was 185 pounds. I mean, I worked out every day, but, I never went and told everybody I'm going to kick the shit out of you. You know what I mean? I mean, all of that stuff comes back. So it's not what you see on television, undercovers, just being, going native and being wild. You've got to remember that your ultimate goal is to get an indictment and get a conviction. And at some point in time, you're probably going to be on a witness stand, and there's nothing sacred anymore. They'll find out everything.
It will all come to light.
Exactly. And if they don't, they'll make it up.
They do that anyways.
Exactly.
Joe, before I let you go, just one more question, kind of a movie nerd question. In the movie, is there any inaccuracy that's always bothered you? Because it's clearly it's your story. What was it?
I never slapped my wife. That was total fiction.
Oh, that would piss me off too.
Put in, it wasn't even in the original script, and I had a big McGill over that. I never had a bag with $300,000. That was a movie, and I didn't cut off that guy's leg with a hacksaw.
Okay,
they cut that guy up with a chainsaw. But other than that, oh, we did have a lion.
Oh, the lion. That's right. What? That was like a kind of a middle finger to Lefty, huh?
Yeah, we did have a lion. Yep. But I never slapped my wife. I didn't have 300,000. We never went to psychiatrist, and I didn't saw that guy's leg off with a hacksaw.
What do we call that in the movie business, Joe? Dramatic license.
Dramatic license.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. The one thing that you mentioned that would have bothered me was the wife thing, because a lot of people just are not that bright. They're going to see the movie and go, "Oh yeah, Joe's beats his wife."
Yeah, I mean that was a big deal because that wasn't in the original script. The director put that in. So,
well, guys, this has been really awesome. Like I said, I'm a fan of your guys' work. I'm a fan of your podcast, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on here. Your podcast is Deep Cover, The Real Donnie Brasco, and I can attest to how good it is. You've given them a little bit of a taste here of your personalities and of the stories you guys. I mean, Joe is a treasure trove of stories. You just keep getting those out because it's really good, guys. And
thank you.
I really enjoy it. And
Thank you, Steve.
Honored to have you guys. And before we go, is there anything else we should put out there? Certainly, I'll put a link to your show in my show notes. I'll put it on our Facebook page and on our website. But anything else you guys want to make sure people know?
Well, I got an audio book that came out a few months ago called Capital White. Okay. And I co-wrote it with John Land, and it's about the drug problem in the U.S.
Awesome.
It's a novel, but it's a Donnie Brasco novel. Capital White.
Capital White. Got it.
And we do have, Joe wrote a book with Bill Bonanno, the son of Joe Bonanno and the head of he was the head of the Bonanno crime family for a while.
Wow.
They collaborated on a book called The Good Guys, and I wrote the script, and it looks like there's going to be some action on that.
No kidding. That sounds,
yes.
Wow. That's just a little bit you told us. It's super interesting.
Yeah. It's right. The Good Guys and Bill Bonanno, Joe Pistone, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco. All right.
Very cool, guys.
All right.
Well,
thanks, Steve. I really appreciate it. Be safe.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
All right, Steve. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care.